Over the course of pretty much the last 15 years in the NBA, the Minnesota Timberwolves have been absolutely awful. Especially pretty much a year ago, they were pretty much a laughingstock of the NBA. I mean, they just couldn't get their stuff together. Their young core just wasn't fitting together the right way. Their defense was awful, and they were consistently finishing towards the bottom of the Western Conference. And I thought this was going to happen again this year, and they were getting hyped up too much. But they completely turned it around. They ended the season as the 7th seed in the West this year with a 46-36 record. And today I'm going to be analyzing the real reasons why the Timberwolves were able to really turn it around. So let's get into the analysis. The first main reason I wanted to discuss, and that really stood out to me throughout the season for the Timberwolves, was how their defense has completely changed, and they're actually a good defensive team now. This year, the Timberwolves had, in the regular season, the 13th best defensive rating in the NBA, with a defensive rating of about 111, and in the previous years, they had the 24th, 20th, and 28th best defensive rating in the league. They had definitely a poor and under-average defense, really, with this young core that they've had the whole time, but this year it completely turned around, and I think this is for multiple different reasons, and really one big one in particular and one particular player. But a lot of things factor in here to why the Timberwolves were able to become a good defensive team. They really kind of just changed their scheme, and I think a lot of the players really bought in on the defensive end of the floor and became very energetic players. They were very good on rotations, communication, and what stands out for me is how good they were at getting steals and deflections. They were a very energetic team that were able to get a lot of steals. I want to see this lead more into some transition opportunities for them. I think they can dominate that way as well if they try to get out and transition a little bit more, which they didn't do too often this year, but I think they can get better at that as well. And overall, in the regular season, they were third in the NBA in steals per game as a team with about 8.8 per game. And I think really the defensive system and defensive scheme of this team has a lot to do with their coaching and their new coach in Chris Finch. I saw him coach with the Raptors a little bit last season and didn't really know much about him, but that's what can happen when you're assistant coaching under a really good and smart defensive coach like Nick Nurse. Is you can learn from that. You can really just overall learn a lot of things about defense, how an NBA team what they need to do to succeed defensively, and I definitely don't think it's a coincidence that once Chris Finch got kind of comfortable with that Timberwolves team and was really their main head coach for a full season this year, all of a sudden they're a very good defensive team. Their personnel, like I said, really just bought in. Their wing defenders, guys like Jaden McDaniels and Jared Vanderbilt, I think did a really good job this year on rotations, one-on-one matchups, getting their hands in the way, getting steals and deflections. A perimeter defender like Jordan McLaughlin did good job this year, providing some energy off the bench. Their interior defenders like Karl Anthony Towns, he's gotten a lot of criticism in the past for being a poor defender, but I think he continued to improve that this year. Definitely became a better pick and roll defender and rim protector. Naz Reid off of the bench provided some great interior defense for this team, but I think there's one player for me that really stands out defensively, and of course is Patrick Beverly. We've known throughout his whole career he's been that big defensive pest and always tries to get in the head of the other team's best player, and I think he did a fantastic job this year of continuing that and bringing kind of that energy that he has on the defensive end of the floor and that winning attitude, that pest attitude to the Minnesota Timberwolves, and on both ends of the floor just really helped them a lot as a leader and helped them off the court as well as a leader. I think that's what this team is really missing, and I think this is really one of the main real reasons why they were able to turn it around this season, because before the Timberwolves, not only did they not have great coaching and a great defensive system, but they also didn't have that vocal leader that had experience in things like the playoffs and knowing what it takes to really succeed as an NBA team. And finally they get a guy in Patrick Beverly, who I'm not going to go out here and say Patrick Beverly's a star and that I like him as a player, because I really don't. He's not that likable of a guy, but you can't deny that he does have amazing defense. He's an amazing competitor, and he has that winning attitude, and he really brought that to the team this year, and you could see the impact that he had. The Timberwolves were 33-25 this year when he played, and only 13-11 when he didn't play, and especially in the playoffs, there were a couple games where he was definitely that main matchup against Ja Morant, and a couple games where he fouled out, and right once he fouled out, the Grizzlies start going off offensively because Pat Bev is really that main defender on the Timberwolves. So that's something that really stood out to me, not only just the coaching and the overall defense of the Timberwolves, but how much of an impact Patrick Beverly had towards his team this year, and I think he deserves a lot of credit for that. As a team going forward, the Timberwolves are in a good position now because defense is really something you need to ultimately win a championship, and they finally have turned the corner. And they're not really a great defensive team, like I said, 13th in the league in terms of defensive rating. They stand out more as a defensive team now. They're definitely not near the top of the league in defense as an overall team, but now at least they have at least an over average defense, and they have something to work with on that end of the floor, which they definitely didn't have over the last few years. On the offensive side of the floor for the Timberwolves, they became a lot better as well, and just as a team, just having more overall ball movement, working better as a team, just having so much better offensive flow and just fitting together really well. This year they had the 7th best offensive rating in the entire NBA, which is extremely impressive. Their offensive rating was nearly 114, so scoring about 114 points for 100 possessions, which is definitely pretty impressive. Compared to the previous years, in 2019, they did have the 13th best offensive rating, but then the next 2 years after that, having both the 24th and 25th ranked offensive rating in the NBA, and now they're all the way up to 7th. So just on both ends of the floor, incredible improvements for the Timberwolves, and I think that offensively for this team, the big change was really the dominance and the improvement of their young players. Karl-Anthony Towns has always been a constant for this team. He's always been one of the best offensive players and most dominant offensive centers in the NBA. But this year we saw guys like Anthony Edwards really step up and improve and really show that he's an all-star caliber player. We also saw D'Angelo Russell have a definitely pretty healthy season this year, and he was definitely a constant for this team as well, putting up about 18 points and 7 assists per game, being really that main playmaker for them. Again, Pat Bev coming in, providing some energy, about 5 assists per game. This team had much better shooting, much better ball movement overall as a team. They ranked 7th in the league in assists per game and 12th in the league in three-point percentage during the regular season. And especially a guy like Anthony Edwards stands out to me, how clutch he was this season, how much he improved compared to last season. We always saw, and especially last year, how much potential Ant had, how he was really able to take a lot of difficult step-back threes, be a shifty player, be a great mid-range and three-point scorer, create his own shot off the dribble. But at times last year, he was really forcing shots sometimes. He was inefficient, and he finished last year with only a 52% true shooting. This year, he brought that all the way up to a 56% true shooting, had definitely decent overall efficiency splits, was a pretty good shooter, shot about 35% from 3 this year on good volume, and put up over 22 points per game. He really impressed me this year. He was a big constant for this Timberwolves team. And then another guy like Jared Vanderbilt, who I talked about earlier as well, he improved this year. He just brings a lot of great energy. He's a very good rebounder, put up about 8.5 rebounds per game this year, and most of his value comes with the defensive end of the floor, but he's another guy offensively who's a good off-ball player. He can provide some good screening sometimes, clean up the glass, and be really efficient. He only put up 7 points per game this year, but did it on about 58% from the field. A great kind of traditional power forward there, and overall this team just worked so much better together. And again, I credit this to Chris Finch, the head coach of this team. He came together and just made this team a better overall basketball team, and he deserves a lot of credit for the success of this team. I don't think people had very high expectations for kind of an inexperienced coach like Chris Finch coming in and taking over the head coaching job of this team, but he's done a great job really helping them turn around on both ends of the floor. Overall, the young talent on this Timberwolves team offensively is finally starting to show because they're able to have decent chemistry with each other on the offensive side of the floor as well. In general, it definitely looks after this year like the Timberwolves are finally taking the right step as a franchise and moving in the right direction. I credit basically their young core for finally coming together and succeeding as a team. I credit a big veteran guy like Patrick Beverly coming in, bringing winning culture to this team, bringing great defensive energy, and especially the coaching staff led by Chris Finch, who's done a great job coaching this team and really turning them around on both ends of the floor this year. I doubted the Timberwolves throughout all of this year from the start, saying that they were going to miss the play-in tournament and were overhyped, all the way to the end, where I thought they would, despite being the 7th seed, find their way out of the playoffs after the play-in tournament. But I've been wrong about the Timberwolves the entire year, and I'm finally seeing just how good of an overall team they are and how much potential they have with this young core, with some great coaching and great overall play as a team on both ends of the floor. So that's all I've got for analysis today. Make sure you guys, if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button, especially if you enjoyed today's video. I'm still going to be posting lots of NBA content during the playoffs. Make sure you guys also comment down below your thoughts on the Minnesota Timberwolves, and I'll see you all next video.